And welcome back, everybody, to I'll Hang Up and Listen, brought to you by Fatty Beer Company, Western New York's premier market and tap room with over 300 beers to choose from at 6 different Western New York locations. If you need a beer, make sure you make it a fatty beer. And let them know Two Goalies One Mike sent you. Couldn't suggest anymore. Get the F Yeah Mango Wheat Beer. It's incredible. Buffalo Go Apparel. You can find them at Buffalo Go Co. on Instagram and Twitter, whether it's your shirts, your hats, your hoodies, all your Bills Mafia gear, some Sabres gear as well. Make sure you go check them out. Again, at Buffalo Go Co. on Instagram and Twitter. You can find Fatty Beer at Fatty Beer on Instagram and Twitter, fattybeer.com. The Buffalo Sabres sweep in very convincing fashion the Ottawa Senators 5-2 tonight. And from what I recollect, they've outscored the Senators how much this season? It's like 15.
I don't know. I don't know confidently. I just know it's 4-0.
I think I saw 15 to like 4 or something. I think like they've really dominated they've dominated in that, and the just in general dominated the Ottawa Senators. I'm taking a look right now. No, I'm sorry. I was way off. I've outscored the Senators 17-5 this season. And I want to see the other stat I think I saw was they have 32 goals scored over the last 5 or 6 games, which is incredible. I think we've said it a couple of times. Goal scoring hasn't been the issue on this team. And it just goes to show when you get a timely save, you can win a hockey game. And, James Reimer is I think that was his 5th straight win in his fifth start, not in a row, but in 5 starts, he's won 5 in a row. So I think I don't know if it's just they're playing a lot more confident in front of Reimer, and they just haven't been able to do that in front of UPL. But James Reimer has seemed to give them some type of calmness when he's in net.
Yeah, he's been really good objectively. And I know we had the discussion last week about who was the starter if UPL lost the starting job. At least as it currently stands, yeah, like James Reimer is giving them the best chance to win. And that's okay. I mean, we talk about the meaningless games, and they are meaningless, but it's not meaningless to James Reimer.
No.
For a guy who's played as long as he has in the NHL, bit of a journeyman, mostly a backup, for him to come in to this situation after not necessarily playing that well for most of the season, and to bounce around to Anaheim and then come back and then play as well as he is right now. He objectively is playing as good as he has, I would say, in his career. So it's pretty cool for him. One cool little note I just discovered: the Sabres are finally not at the bottom of the East anymore.
Yeah, shout out Lauren in the group chat. I know that those are Bruins that we overtook.
I was going to say, guess who's below them? And it's just like so shocking to me, obviously not given how they're currently constructed, but that the Boston Bruins have lost 9 games in a row and are currently the worst team in the Eastern Conference.
Which is crazy. I mean, actually, it should be crazy. I mean, they traded away a guy like Marchand at the deadline, which came as a surprise at all. And, their age has finally caught up with them.
Yeah, I mean, they're in rebuild mode, and for a team that doesn't have necessarily the best prospect system, that's a tough place to be. Obviously, the Sabres have had the best prospect system for years and have been through 3 rebuilds, so it might not matter. And obviously, I think an organization like that is pretty attractive for free agents and for guys to come in. So I think they'll probably turn it around relatively quickly. But it's pretty shocking to see. And also, as far as the Sabres are concerned, yeah, they're going to miss the playoffs. It's going to be 14 years. But to see the fight out of these guys, especially against a division rival, I think they do take some pride in spoiling the Sens wild card. I mean, the Sens are up 7 games in the wild card race. They're going to make the playoffs more than likely, but to at least hurt their position, I think definitely don't want to give up any ground. It's a relatively tight wild card race, and for the Sabres to go into their building, obviously Brady Tkachuk's not playing. That makes a huge difference. But even when he was playing this season, they still pretty much pumped him all the other 3 games as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, the season as a whole is a disappointment, but there have been some bright spots, and the Sabres player against the Senators is definitely one of them.
Yeah. The play of Ryan McLeod, and obviously in this last stretch of a few games, of Jack Quinn. I'll even say Peyton Krebs. This is the best hockey we've seen out of those last two, Krebs and Quinn, all season, without a doubt. It's nice to see. I don't know if Jack Quinn is finally playing with confidence. I think that can be key. Obviously, maybe his health has played into it quite a bit. Dylan Cousins, a guy that he has kind of ridden shotgun for the most part with his career, is no longer here. I just find it strange that it took him leaving for him to find this in his game, because honestly, ever since the trade deadline, he has been obviously given more opportunity given that trade, but he's just been a completely night and day different player.
Yeah, for sure. He's playing with more confidence. It could be an injury thing, right? Like he finally has his legs under him.
I think it's a little of both.
Yeah, and he hasn't played with Peterka that much this season, and I think he has some natural chemistry with JJ. Obviously going back to the kid line from a couple of years ago and how excited everybody was about that, playing with Peterka and playing with him as long as he has, honestly, since the Americans days. The two of them kind of came up right around the same time. They entered the league at the same time, and they seem to know each other really well and where each other is on the ice. So, I kind of like UPL. I'm not going to give up hope on Jack Quinn. I think that he still has everything that they drafted him for. Yeah. And I think that we've seen enough spurts, not only the past couple of weeks, but over the course of his career, that all hope is not lost for him. I think his main thing has been really just staying on his feet and getting to a dangerous area of the ice, which is for him the slot. And for any NHL player, it is the slot, but specifically for him with his shot that he has, getting into those scoring areas. He's really thrived with that recently, and we need to see a lot more of that for the rest of the season and also at the beginning of next year, no matter where he is in the lineup. But it's encouraging for sure.
JJ Peterka hits 60 points on the season. A guy that's going to be talked about a lot this offseason. Obviously, he's coming up on a contract here, looking for a new deal. Probably most Sabres fans would hope for a long-term deal. I don't think you want to bridge deal him. He's one of the guys, too, for me, that I don't look like at him as a guy who's going to just suddenly lose his game after he gets paid, because of honestly, realistically, third year in a row, we've seen really good hockey from JJ Peterka. It wasn't just like a one-off year where Dylan Cousins turned it on, scored 30 goals, and then we paid him, and then he disappeared. I feel actually fairly confident if they wanted to offer JJ Peterka like a Quentin Byfield-like contract, I could be completely fine with it.
Yeah, third full season in the NHL. His shooting percentage has gone up 3 percentage points every year. So he has less goals this year, but he's also taking less shots, which, you could say one way or the other on that. You might want him to shoot a little bit more. But at least recently, I think he's been a little bit more aggressive. Last year, he had 50 points, 50 points in 82 games, 28 goals, 22 assists. This year, he has 60 points in 69 games, and I think that would be 23 goals and 37 assists. So he's proven not only that he can be close to a 30-goal scorer as he did last season, but he can also be a distributor and a playmaker as well. And that's a good sign for a guy like him with so much speed, a good amount of physicality, and he's really just coming into his own. Still only 23 years old, and he turns 24 in January. So that is a really good sign for a guy like that this early in his career. And I think any type of deal, whether it's long-term, bridge, whatever makes sense for both the player and the team, I do think both sides should be motivated to get it done. Because if you're Peterka, you've got power play, you've got top-line minutes, you're going to be put in hopefully even a better situation if they actually improve the top six this offseason, which if Kevin Adams wants to keep his job, I say that not confidently, but if he does care about improving this team, he's going to try to improve the top six. And that can only be a good thing for Peterka.
Now, there's two ways you can look at this. You can look at this resurgence here at the end of the season as Jack Quinn is something we've seen before, because we have seen it before, where he'll all of a sudden go through a 5-6 game stretch where he looks like the best player on the team. Do you take that and hope that can be sustained long term, or do you use that as a bargaining chip in a trade, to your point, to get a top six guy, or find that top four defenseman that we've needed for Owen Power now for over 3 off seasons? because I think you can't go through another offseason without finding that legitimate defensive partner for Owen Power.
Yeah,
Or you feel like this guy finally found his game and ride him with it, because I could totally see Kevin Adams thinking, I'm not going to touch the top 6 because Jack Quinn has finally arrived.
I think Kevin Adams, of course, we are all saying like, oh, they make this late season surge and that means everything is fine and they're not going to do anything. He has to know as well as anybody that he can't roll back the same unit that he did this season and expect different results. It's the definition of insanity. If a team is interested in Jack Quinn and it meaningfully contributes to a trade to get you a top 4 defenseman or a legitimate proven top 6 winger who's been a veteran in the NHL, who's consistently produced throughout the course of his career, can add some toughness, can add some leadership. Yeah, Jack Quinn is probably a pretty good trade piece. A lot of guys in this organization are at the moment. As it's currently constructed, a lot of the top prospects don't necessarily have a path to the roster. And if you meaningfully add to the top 6, where does Jack Quinn fit in? Is he on the 3rd line? Is he on the 4th line? He's not a 4th line type player.
No, he's not a bottom 6 guy with the way he's playing right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be nice if Jack Quinn was on a really good 3rd line, a scoring 3rd line. I think that would be a good thing for all parties involved. Less tough defensive matchups, less pressure, and the ability to produce in situations where he hasn't necessarily been in throughout the past couple seasons, especially with his injuries. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think they actively shop him, but if they're actively looking for a top 4 defenseman, which they better be, and a team asks for Jack Quinn, you at least open yourself up to those discussions.
Agreed. We did get a comment here from Connor. Is there any chance we could make the playoffs? I mean, they're not mathematically out. I mean, you would need a miracle. You need to
leapfrog. Do you believe in miracles, Al Michaels?
Yes. You would need a legitimate miracle in order to make the playoffs. But I'm not going to get into that. We're not doing this. I'm not going to do it.
Well,
do this game by game.
Let's. I mean, it's
We're not doing this.
8 games left, right? So
yes.
They're 9 points out. No games in hand on Montreal, who is currently 9 points ahead of them. They need to win every game. So that would be 16 points to get to 86 points. Yes. And then you would need Montreal to get 7 or less in its final 8 games.
Correct.
Or any one of Columbus, New York, Detroit to basically all falter as well. The part that makes it tough is that inevitably these teams are going to play each other. So there are going to be loser points involved. There's going to be a team that gets 2 points and a team that gets 0 points, and you don't necessarily know which one to root for. So I think I saw a graphic the other day. The chance was 0.001. I would put it at maybe after tonight 0.01. So if you're talking about miracles, yeah, there's a chance. But what would you consider to be an actual chance? I'm relatively optimistic when it comes to these things, but typically mid-March is the cutoff for that type of discussion. So it's not going to happen. I wouldn't get your hopes up.
Yeah, don't get your hopes up.
It would be awesome.
I had to stop.
It would be awesome if they won their final 8 games of the season and made a run at it. You know what I mean? I don't discourage that. And especially now that they're not at the bottom of the East anymore, they've all but relinquished their chances at getting a lottery pick. So at this point, I do want to see them win games. If James Reimer can continue his hot hand, as if, let's say we were in the playoffs, James Reimer would get the next start, but obviously we're not. But if you continue to play him and he plays as well as he is, and you start beating teams and you start playing spoiler, yeah, this could be a fun little run to end the season.
Yeah.
If they
ultimately
do this and miss the playoffs by 2 points, it's going to be the most frustrating thing ever. But I would rather that than lose all 8 games, personally.
I personally think that even if they even came in tonight and they were mathematically out, James Reimer is still getting these starts because I think Lindy does care about ending with the best record possible.
Yeah, I think they all do.
I think he believes in, ending out on a high note. And again, we talked about this last time. I do care about UPL's development. I think him not being out there right now, whether they're eliminated or not already, it matters to him mentally. It does. As goalies, we care about that kind of stuff. And the question about his ability mentally to overcome these things, it has come into question in the past, at least for me. And I hate seeing another season where he's lost the job again to a goalie who's like probably retiring next year potentially. And I don't know, man. Like he just keeps putting himself in these situations where he's got to overcome something that he shouldn't have to because he was given the net. He earned the net. He didn't give it. He was earned this net. He earned that starter's net to start the season based off his play last year. He was given the contract that he earned based off last season. And once again, to an over-the-hill goaltender, he loses the net. Like I couldn't even imagine what's going through his mind right now as the season winds down.
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily what he or the organization expected, but is he just going to lie down, or is he going to put the work in to try to improve upon the things that he hasn't necessarily been great at this season? I would say specifically, he, as you mentioned the other night, I forget which goal it was against the Flyers, but he has been deep in his net. And I think that's something that we even saw from a goalie as good as Connor Hellebuck in the Four Nations final. I think it was the Sam Bennett goal, where it was a pretty nice play, but when you're as big of a goalie as that, 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", I think you have the tendency to be overconfident about where you are in your crease relative to where the shooter is. And I think the benefit of smaller goaltenders, a la Dustin Wolf or Marc-Andre Fleury, even Devin Levi, is that they know they can't survive in the NHL or probably any league playing like that. So I think obviously you don't want to overcommit as a goalie, but at the same time, like you do want to be a little bit more aggressive. You want to take the net away. And I think that's something that he can work on. His movement across the crease, I think, has been pretty good, especially since he's been fully healthy. So getting out at the top of his crease, being a little bit more aggressive generally as a goalie, I think will do him wonders moving forward. And hopefully that's something Mike Bales and the rest of the coaching staff is working on, because we've seen it many times. He does have the game. We saw it for 5 out of the 6 months of last season. And obviously, like you said, he earned that contract. I'm not going to give up on him. I think the defense has been largely pretty horrible this whole season. I think we all know that. And it's not completely on him. I don't think anybody would be correct to say that either. But he does have some stuff to work on. And I do hope that he takes the rest of the spring and in the summer to really, really work on those things. Because as far as it stands now, he's got 3 years left on that deal. And as of now, he will be the starter going into next season.
Yeah. Listen, unless, again, you see a lot of trade UPL, that they're not going to trade him in year two, heading into year 2 of a 5-year deal. I mean,
at his lowest possible value, mind you.
Yeah, it's just not going to happen.
It wouldn't make sense.
Yeah. You're not going to get the return you want at all. I would like to think that you would finally, and I think it's just too easy of a call. It should be a layup. Thatcher Demko is going to be available this offseason, given the way the goaltending situation has gone in Vancouver. He has 1 year left on his deal, and he has no trade protection. Doesn't that not make enough sense?
It's definitely interesting, and just the one thing I've seen on that recently is the injury concern. It is a legitimate thing with him.
Yeah, but it's a 1 year risk, and you still have UPL.
Right.
You're not trading UPL. You're having them too as a tandem. And I think that's the first time you have go into a season, in my opinion, almost feeling comfortable. That'd be the most comfortable I would have felt with the goaltending situation heading into a season. Or, you go into next season, depending on what they decide to do with Devin Levi, depending on how this playoff run goes for Rochester. Do you ride into next season with UPL and Devin Levi as the backup?
Yeah, I think you got to explore a lot of different options. I think you see what happens with Levi in the playoffs. I think you see how UPL comes into shape in camp with the work that he's hopefully done over the summer. You see where his head's at. You see where his game's at. You see right around the draft or even in free agency or the trade market, like you see what goalies are available. I haven't looked at the UFAs in terms of the goalie market is concerned recently, but the last time I looked wasn't great. So you might have to consider a trade like that for someone like Thatcher Demko. Obviously, high risk, high reward. If it is 1 year, that it's potentially worth the risk, but you also have to think about what it's going to take to get Thatcher Demko if you are potentially taking a big risk on a guy who has been injury plagued throughout his career. So it's an interesting discussion. I personally, as it currently stands right now, I wouldn't necessarily feel super comfortable with UPL and Levi going as the two goalies going into the beginning of next season. I do think they need more experience than that. I think they need something that's more proven, because neither of them have proven over consistently in the NHL yet. And I think we all know that if this team is going to make the playoffs next season, they need to have consistent, proven goaltending.
Well,
So,
I'm looking at. I know we talk about the injury issues with Thatcher. Not to interrupt you, but he started 51 games last season. Went 35 and 14, which is a Vezina level type year. The year before that, he started 32 games, which again was an injury season for him. Went 14 and 14. The year before that, he started 61 games, appeared in 64, went 33 and 22. So reality of it is, okay, maybe there's been a little bit of injury history there a couple times throughout his career. But I would say, last year he stayed healthy. This year has been a different story. He's only started 20 games, gone 8-7. But I wouldn't say he's been any more injury plagued than UPL.
Yeah, since his surgery, though, I would say UPL has, thankfully, he hasn't had too much of a concern, right? Like, he's
the double hip surgery?
Since he had that double hip surgery, like, he's missed some games here and there, but he's largely been consistent on the injury front, I would say.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's way better than what it was supposed to be. I'm just looking at the unrestricted free agent list in terms of goalies. One guy that just like pops out to me in terms of like what I'm thinking about in the James Reimer type like arena would be a guy like Jake Allen. 10 years in the league. He's played, 457 games in the NHL. This season with the Devils, he's got a .261 and a .910 save percentage. That's not necessarily a guy that's going to get you super excited, but it's also probably a better option.
That's an option for sure.
Yeah. So
that's an option for sure.
The options aren't great. Vitek Vanacek, Frederick Anderson, Alexander Grigoriev, Anton Forsberg, Marc-Andre Fleury. Obviously he's done after the retirement tour. He's got Dan Vladar, Ilya Samsonov. We've got some RFAs in there, but the options are not amazing by any stretch of the imagination. The guy with the highest AAV actually is Robin Lehner. So that tells you where the goalie market is right now. But I don't know. A guy like, just looking at that list off the bat in terms of unrestricted free agents who you wouldn't have to make a trade for, Jake Allen combined with UPL, or even, obviously Levi could be up with the team, but that combination to begin the year would at least make me feel better, provided James Reimer is going to retire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yes, maybe James could play another year, but do you really want to bring him back and do this again? I don't.
Jake Allen is 34.6. He'll be 35 to begin the year. James Reimer is 37. So you might have a couple of years left in Jake Allen's career, and could be another situation like Craig Anderson. Like, you got a guy who's done it before, right? Like, he's played a lot of games in the NHL. He's had multiple seasons starting 50 plus games. He started 60 games once. So obviously he's not what he was, but in terms of what I'm seeing and who's consistently proved it, that could be a good option.
Yeah. Again, that's why I liked the idea of that. He's only making $250,000 more than UPL. And again, it's a low risk, high reward, right? Like, you get 1 year out of them. You're not investing anything. You're investing virtually the same money you have in UPL. You have the cap money to spend. So what's the big deal? Rather than hope that you sign Jake Allen to a multi-year deal, which is probably what you would end up doing, and then hope that guy can sustain what he did this season for Buffalo. I guess we can go either way there. But moving on. Dylan Cousins, I guess he kind of forgot a couple times that he doesn't play for Buffalo anymore tonight.
Yeah.
Celebrated the tuck goal on accident. Threw his hands up, and then immediately brought him back down, which is kind of funny. And then possibly his best pass as a Sabre this season, right on the tape of Peyton Krebs, leading to an absolute dart past Olmark.
Yeah, sweet justice, not justice. A coincidental happenstance, I would say. I mean, I'm happy for him, given that he has produced pretty well since he's been in Ottawa. I mean, he hasn't like blown the roof off by any means, but everything I've read is that he's played hard. He's produced. He's been on the top power play unit. Seems to be relatively well liked, and that's replacing a guy who was really well liked in that locker room in Josh Norris. So he does seem like he's at least in a better situation. Obviously, a night like tonight could be really tough for him, and as an athlete, those types of things can happen, right? Like that was a really, really good play by Peyton Krebs, and he. I mean, Cousins telegraphed it, but Krebs, like a defensive back, was reading his eyes the entire way
and just hopped right on it, jumped the route.
And it gives me hope for a guy like Peyton Krebs. Obviously, 9 goals is nothing to write home about, but I, at this current juncture, wouldn't be too upset with him as the fourth line center. He's at least a pretty good playmaker. We know how tough he is. He gets into the corners. I don't think he's ever going to be that top 6 guy or even middle 6 guy that you hoped he would be when he was in that Eichel deal. But he's at least shown some promise over the second half of the season. And yeah, I mean, it all could change depend on who they add in the offseason or even trade for or offer sheet or whatever. But as it currently stands, like Peyton Krebs isn't the worst fourth line center that you could possibly have.
Yeah, for sure. Again, I want to kind of pick at Ryan McLeod's game a little. Actually, Tage hitting almost guaranteed to hit 40 goals this season unless some freak injury happens between now and the next game, which knock on wood it doesn't. Over under 45 goals.
Under 45, I think. Under 45, I think, but I think he's going to get to 40 for sure. He's at 38 right now, right?
He's at 39. Yeah, number 39 tonight.
39. Yeah, I think under 45 probably.
With, what is it, 11 games left?
His career high is what, 44? Or did he have 47 one year?
He like 47 or 48. He came pretty close to 50.
It'd be pretty cool if he got 45 again. I do think it's going to be tough, but I do think he could do it. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned McLeod. I just picked him up in my fantasy playoff semifinal, actually, because of how much of a heater he's been on the past 20 games. He's basically been a point per game player. And meanwhile, also being one of the best defensive players on the team. He hits, he blocks shots. He obviously has a lot of speed. He's been a plus player at every end of the ice. He's not only producing, but he's doing all of those other things as well. And yeah, we can get on Kevin Adams for not adding enough to the top 6, but what he did with, I mean, even 3 of his most significant moves that he's made in the past couple of years, Jordan Greenway, Ryan McLeod, and Jason Zucker are all guys that are going to be huge contributors to this team next season. So yeah, he's made some tough moves here and there, but even Bowen Byram for Casey Middlestat looks like a pretty good trade. There's been a variety of different situations where, yeah, like you would have loved more for the top 6, but like, I don't know how limited his options actually were. Not only from an UFA perspective, they paid Jason Zucker $5 million and we were all upset. And they traded Matt Savoy for Ryan McLeod, who at that time was relatively unknown given his role on the Oilers. But he's really flourished with his role on the Sabres. So yeah. I will give Kevin Adams some credit in those respects, because I think in that aspect, he did make the team a little bit better. You can knock him for the defense and the goaltending, but at least from a forward perspective, not bad at all.
No, and I think, I admitted this week or last week, that, hey, right away, your initial reaction to that trade was like, what the fuck? Savoy guy got a lot of comparisons to Briere, was stuck in juniors because of the rules of the NHL and, bringing a guy like him up. he couldn't play in the AHL, which is where you wanted him. Initial reaction right away was negative, but eat crow and you have to eat crow. He's been fantastic this season. Was a little bit streaky at one point, but for the most part, like, he has been a very, very good bottom six guy and filled in well in the top six when you needed him to.
Yeah, I mean, even Savoy this season in Bakersfield, first season full time in the AHL, which is tough for anybody, especially a 19-year-old. Or is he 20? Either way, 46 points in 57 games. It's not bad by any means, but it's also not lighting the world on fire as the top prospect in the Oilers organization now.
No,
so I think you got to be he's 21, so you got to be relatively happy with that trade if you're Kevin Adams, and that goes along with the Greenway trade, that goes along with the Zucker signing. Obviously, both of them got new deals. Yeah, I mean, he can take his fair share of licks, and I know he will. But at the end of the day, he's made a few moves recently that have tangibly improved the roster, and you got to give him credit for that.
Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
I'm just even more upset about that 13-game winless streak in December.
Yeah, right.
I mean, you saw it in the Flyers game. Dahlin was out with an illness. You see how much of an impact he has. Dahlin was out for 8 of those 13 games, right in the middle of it. And you could see how much of an impact that had on the team. Obviously, every team has injuries. Not every team has injuries to their star player. Not every team has injuries to their star player who affects the team's play as much as Rasmus Dahlin does. I think he has as much of an effect on the Sabres as Kel McCarr has on the Avalanche in terms of how much he affects the play of the overall team. So, yeah, it's unlucky. It's really unfortunate. They got 3 out of a possible 26 points. If they had even gotten 10, they would be in this race. And that is really, really unfortunate as both a fan of the team. I'm sure the coaching staff, the front office, the scouting department, everybody looks back to that stretch and thinks about what could have been. I hope they don't say, oh, Dahlin was out, that was just unlucky, and run it back, because obviously that's not going to be good enough. Aside from that stretch, this team has played at a wild card pace the entire season. So you can look at that and be like, hey, we're not that far off. Or you can be like, yeah, doesn't matter because it did happen. You can't erase it no matter what happened. Every team goes through injuries. So I do hope that, yeah, it's another meaningless April run given what happened in November and December, but I hope they can build off it, and I hope they can tangibly build the roster off it to not only play like this, but add to the team and actually make a real run at this thing next season.
Little comment here from Mauricio from earlier on. I wanted to get to whatever happened to the Peanut Gallery Top Fan Appreciation Award. Duane, your memory is at a loss. You were gung-ho at one time. I mean, we're still going to do it.
We'll do it at the end of the season. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what are we talking about here? I haven't forgotten anything, Mauricio. And I haven't seen him. I don't know if he got mad and kind of dipped out on us, but
well, maybe he was. Maybe he was
into the comments right away.
Maybe he was
filling up this. Sorry, go ahead.
Maybe he was disillusioned, as a lot of people have been watching this team.
Yeah.
I will say though, if there's a time to tune in, like, they're gonna play spoiler. They're gonna keep playing like this, and if James Reimer continues his heater, like, nights like this are kind of fun. Like that goal Tage scored, where everyone thought he was going to shoot and passes it over to Peterka and is probably going to make the NHL highlight of the week play.
Yep.
Like, that's fun. And obviously you've got 2 superstars on the team that you can watch on a nightly basis in Tage and Dahlin. And if Reimer's going to make one more run at this before he rides off into the sunset, as a goalie, personal feelings about what he's said in the past aside about certain social issues, I'm going to cheer James Reimer on. I am. I'm going to.
I feel the same way.
I'm going to, like, as a goalie, like, this is really cool for him to go on this type of run if this is going to be the final 5-6 game stretch of his career. So I'm looking forward to that, and hopefully they get as many wins as they possibly can in these final 8. I have no interest in them tanking whatsoever.
I totally agree with you. I don't agree at all with James Reimer's social views, but, I can separate that when he's on the ice when it comes to my team winning. Like, I'm not going to root against my team.
doesn't seem like a bad person. He had a legitimate reason for saying what he said. If anyone wants to look it up, they can. I know I hold no ill will towards him personally. It's tough to think about sometimes because I am as passionate as I am about that subject, but it is what it is. Him on the ice seems like he's been a pretty good teammate. The locker room seems to like him. He hasn't said or done anything harmful since he's been here. I'm not sure what his stance was on Pride Night the other night, but it doesn't matter. He's playing well right now, and that's all you can ask for. So good for him. Hopefully he continues it.
Like I said, I can separate myself from. I can hear some. To your point, like you can hear somebody's point of view on something and not just label them. Oh well, you're just a terrible human being, and you don't deserve to be in the action. Like no, I'm not like that. Like I don't agree with it, and I have an opposite point of view. Kind of like the old Ovechkin thing. Like people, don't want to. I gotten messages in the past. How could you root for Ovechkin right now with what's going on in Ukraine? I'm like, I don't agree at all with.
Yeah, but you also don't know
what he's going through.
Yeah, what his situation is either. Like if he's being threatened, or if like anything is.
Look what happened to Artemi Panarin.
Yeah, exactly. So
great example.
Yeah, it's I mean, regardless of what you think about it, same with Ovechkin. Like what he's going to accomplish, likely before the end of this season now, given the pace that he's on.
4 goals away from breaking it
is really remarkable, and it's one of the greatest accomplishments in the history of sports. So,
do you kind of wish? I feel like remember how like even if you didn't watch baseball, you watched baseball when Sosa and McGuire were going back and forth chasing the single season home run record, and then later on when obviously we knew that Barry Bonds was a choosing, but everybody else had their eyes glued to the TV waiting for him to do it later on in less games, like. I kind of wish that's the way this was being treated. What I mean?
I think the NHL has done a relatively good job of it. I know SportsCenter.
I'm not blaming the NHL. I just wish the sports world would embrace it the way they've done, like the way that in the past.
Yeah, I think especially once he gets to like the games where it theoretically could happen, both the tying and the passing goal, I do think it's going to be covered like that. Leading up to it is a little bit tougher because people don't really casually tune into random regular season NHL games, especially when they're relatively meaningless given how good Washington is. But I think the tying, once he gets into a position to tie it, I do think it's going to be appointment television, not just for hockey fans. I think people are going to treat it like the Four Nations tournament. I really am. I really do believe that. And even people at work, like a lot of my coworkers, we work in sports and they're not huge hockey fans, but they're asking me about it. They at least know that it's happening, and they know everybody knows that Wayne Gretzky, he's the great one. He's the greatest hockey player of all time, and it's not even close, and no one will ever surpass him. Connor McDavid, as good as he is, likely won't ever surpass him as the greatest hockey player ever. But for someone to even come close to him in goals, let alone pass him, which Ovechkin is going to do, it is one of the greatest accomplishments in the history of sports.
Question to you, too. Another kind of like off-topic thing before we get out of here. Gavin McKenna, I think he's got like 32 points. I know he's not eligible for the draft this year, but next year. Is this a kid that is big, is more, I don't know how to phrase this. You know how it was an easy decision, I guess, for Tim Murray to tank to get McDavid, right? Like that, it was just a layup for him. It's like, yeah, this is the different. Is McKenna that caliber of a player?
So I haven't watched him a lot. You obviously see the stats.
Dude, they're disgusting. And I've seen the highlights. He is disgusting.
He's 6 foot, 165 pounds, 17 years old. He is also, like our good friend Dylan Cousins, from Whitehorse.
Ooh.
Interestingly enough, 129 points in 56 games. I will say, though, in the World Juniors this past year, 1 point in 5 games. So
what did you say?
He had 1 point in 5 games in the World Juniors. Who knows what type of role he had, but it does say a little bit about what level he's at currently. Obviously, the W is one of the best junior leagues in the world. NHL caliber talent comes out of there all the time. But Connor Bedard had similar numbers in the W, right? And yeah, he's had a really good start to his NHL career, but he's not necessarily Connor McDavid level at this point. So no, I wouldn't put him at McDavid's level, but I would put him at Bedard's level for sure. And Bedard was seen as the best prospect since McDavid. and given his size and how he's going to develop over the course of the next year, I would put him at probably a prospect if he continues this pace a little bit over Bedard.
Yeah. All right, guys. Remember, this is brought to you by Fatty Beer Company, Western New York's premier market and tap room with over 300 beers to choose from. If you need a fatty beer, or if you need a beer, make sure you make it a fatty beer. Let them know Two Goalies when Mike sent you. You can find them at Fatty Beer on Instagram and Twitter, fattybeer.com. If you haven't subscribed to us already, please make sure you do so. If you're watching on Twitter, you can find myself at DuaneS39. You can find my co-host, C. Hurls13. You can find us at Two Goalies One Mike as well on Instagram and Twitter. If you're watching on YouTube, please make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you know when we go live. And please, if you're watching, I know all you guys are watching. I can see you in the chat where you're watching from. Hit the like button. Hit that like button, please. Means a lot. And as always, go Sabres. See you next time.